Welcome to Jurassic Park. So Jurassic Park came out in 1993 and is the last of what I would consider to be Steven Spielberg's golden age of movies. And I would say that this golden age started around Jaws and ended around Jurassic Park, and that's because his movies during this time had a very specific feel that's kind of hard to capture, but one thing's for sure, they definitely had a lot of spotlights, and Jurassic Park is no different. In fact, Jurassic Park is kind of like Jaws, but with dinosaurs instead of sharks. It's got that kind of B-movie feel, you know, dinosaurs on an island going crazy, but like Jaws, it's not handled like cheesy B-movie schlock. It's handled with weight and characters and relationships that you care about. And it changes the dynamic from, oh, let's just watch all these people get killed by dinosaurs and have fun, into, oh, I really hope these people get off the island and make it out okay. So let's dive right into it. So the opening of Jurassic Park takes place on the island of Isla Nublar, which is somewhere off the coast of Costa Rica, and we have a raptor incident take place. Now we don't actually see the raptors or the death that's happening. It's all shot very choppy and suspenseful, again, like Jaws, but with dinosaurs, where you don't actually see the monster, you just see the effects that it has on people. And it's a pretty effective way to show that these people are dealing with things that they don't fully understand and not really prepared for. But then we jump all the way to Montana, I think, and we meet Dr. Grant, played by Sam Neill, and Dr. Sattler, played by Laura Dern. And these are our two scientists that got kind of an interesting relationship. I think they're dating, but it's kind of ambiguous. They definitely like each other, but there's a couple things that we learn here. One, Dr. Grant doesn't like or trust machines. He thinks machines are flawed and that the old school ways of digging in the dirt is where the real magic happens. And also, he doesn't really like kids, which has been kind of the thorn in the side of their relationship. It's something they don't really see eye to eye on. So we'll check on that later and see how that develops. But they get recruited by Santa Claus from the Miracle on 34th Street remake. I know it's Richard Attenborough and he's had a long career of a bunch of great roles, but I still know him as Santa Claus from that remake. And he recruits them to check out this amusement park and sign off on it so the lawyers can get off his back. So they agree to go, and the lawyer brings along Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum. And Ian Malcolm is the standout performance in this movie. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, but what's funny is that this is Jeff Goldblum just being Jeff Goldblum, the persona that he's adopted ever since The Fly, I think. But what makes it work here is that the first time you see him, you're like, oh, this guy, he's unlikable, he's brash, he's got no filter. But then as the movie progresses, you find out that Ian Malcolm was right about everything all along, that you can't control these dinosaurs, that life will find a way. And by the end of the movie, you're like, yeah, I wish we had listened to that guy before a bunch of people got killed. But all is not well on this island, because you've got Newman from Seinfeld doing industrial espionage and sabotaging the whole park, and he's really the reason everything goes down. Sure, things might have gotten out of whack or maybe have had a couple hiccups here and there, but really it was Newman that was the catalyst for everything to go wrong. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because the first half of this movie isn't really an action movie. It's not an adventure or thriller movie. It's childish awe and wonder encapsulated in a theme park with dinosaurs. And this is really why I think Jurassic Park became the phenomenon that it was, and I can't really give Spielberg the credit. I think the credit should go to Michael Crichton, the author of the book Jurassic Park. He came up with the idea of a theme park full of dinosaurs that you can meet and interact with, and that is such an inherently cool idea that even the worst of the Jurassic Park movies still have that central concept to fall back on and reel you back in. Because really, if dinosaurs were brought back, who wouldn't want to go to a theme park and experience that? I know I would. Even though the whole thesis of the Jurassic Park franchise is to prove the point that it's a terrible idea to have an amusement park full of dinosaurs. But if that were real, you bet I would be first in line to go to this park, because I want to see some dinosaurs. And the first half of this movie is exactly that. We see the dinosaurs, and they look great. Sure, the CGI is starting to look a little dated in some places, but for the most part, it holds up. And what really clinches it is John Williams' musical score. When you see those brontosauruses for the first time, when that score hits its crescendo, you don't care that it looks fake. You're making the same face that all these guys are making, and it works. But there is one person that isn't quite so taken in by all this, and that's Ian Malcolm, of course. And he drops a great line when they're eating lunch and they're discussing the park and the concerns they have and the excitement that they have. And you know it's a Golden Age Spielberg movie when you've got a lot of spotlight shooting everywhere. And he says you have all this power and technology, but you wield it like a kid who just found his dad's gun. There's no responsibility or discipline being implemented to make sure this park works properly. And that's the problem with this park. There's so much enthusiasm and hubris involved that nobody took a step back and was thinking, should we really be doing this? Is this a smart choice? But we're still in the awe and wonderment phase of this movie, and it's kind of my favorite part of any Jurassic Park, is just to see what it would be like if dinosaurs really existed in a theme park setting, and the different creative ways that you can incorporate dinosaurs into a themed experience. I don't know, for me, someone who's always enjoyed animatronics and theme parks and going to Disney World, I can't get enough of that concept, and it's probably why I watch both versions of Westworld and like both of them, even though they're very different. Same thing with Jurassic Park. It's just so cool to see all these dinos interacting with people, and it's the scene with the sick Triceratops where, for me, I'm like, these dinosaurs are real. The effects are working, because they actually built a full-scale animatronic Triceratops laying down, and it moves and breathes. When Dr. Grant has his head on the Triceratops' belly and it's breathing and it's moving up and down, I'm like, that thing is alive. But the fun and games can't last forever, because the power goes down when Newman tries to escape and he gets eaten by this dinosaur thing. I don't know what kind of dinosaur that's supposed to be, but it's so cool. It's got the fins, it's got the spitting acid, it's awesome. And it's 100% animatronic, so the effects on it are amazing. But the power goes down right when the storm hits, and our main characters are sitting right in front of the T-Rex enclosure. What else? And this is the best scene in the movie, without a doubt. If you can think of a scene in Jurassic Park, heck, even the whole Jurassic Park franchise, that is more perfect than this scene where the T-Rex gets loose, tell me. Let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear it. But for me, this is it. This is the pinnacle of Jurassic Park movie making. From the ripples in the water, to the dilation of the T-Rex's eyeball, to the use of standing still so he doesn't see you versus running away to try to distract him from the people that are standing still, to when the lawyer gets eaten in the most satisfyingly hilarious way when he goes to hide in the outhouse and he just gets chomped. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the effects here, because these effects are so good. Now, the effects in this movie have actually aged pretty well. Some of the CGI elements, like that flock of dinosaurs that were running away from the T-Rex later in the movie, that's starting to look a little fake, but by and large the CGI is decent. And the animatronics are just great. Animatronics, I don't think, age at all. They look as good now as they did back in 1993. So I don't really have a problem with that. The only problem is that with animatronics, you are limited in movement and how much of it you can actually see at one time. But for this T-Rex, they actually use a very clever blend of practical and CGI elements. They'll use CGI for the wider shots when you have the whole dinosaur running, but whenever they cut to a close-up or only have to show a small portion of the dinosaur in the shot, it's always practical. And the constant switching back and forth between practical and CGI ends up tricking your brain into thinking they're just the same thing, and here is a dinosaur on display. But that doesn't mean you can just throw up any CGI crap you want and people will be fooled. The other factor to the scene is the fact that it's dark and in the rain, just like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea did with the giant squid. When it's darkly lit and it's raining, it's harder to make out the flaws. If this took place in broad daylight, the lighting and texture changes from the puppet to the CGI model would be a lot more noticeable, but since it's dark and it's in the rain, you've got all this interference going on, you don't pick up on that as much, and it just looks so smooth. But from here on out, the movie is in full survival mode. These people are trapped on this island. They gotta find a way to boot some of the systems back up because everything was automated. Another really big mistake on Hammond's part. And we see a few different dinosaurs here and there, a couple different encounters, but the main threat from here on out is the Velociraptor. And it's my opinion that Jurassic Park made Velociraptors scary. If you were to ask any kid, what's the scariest dinosaur you can think of? They would say T-Rex. It's big, it's got sharp teeth, it's scary, it could stomp on you. But after seeing Jurassic Park, if you were to ask me, what's the scariest dinosaur you can think of? I'd say Velociraptor, because they're small, they're faster, they're more vicious, they're more calculating, they're clever, and they have that ambush tactic that they used on that big game hunter guy where he's chasing one, but then two more will flank you from the sides and you'll have no way out. That's terrifying. And like the T-Rex, the Velociraptor effects are a combination of practical and CGI. Another thing that makes these effects age so much better than a lot of stuff made in the 90s with CGI. And the Raptors have their big moment in this industrial kitchen chasing the kids. Oh, I didn't even talk about the kids. So there's kids in this movie because it's a Steven Spielberg movie and he always has to have a couple kids somewhere because people will relate to that. The younger audience will gravitate to that. And here it works because you have these kids that they're expecting Disneyland and now they're fighting for their lives. And having them trapped in this kitchen, it's a very enclosed space. You have the velociraptors talking to each other and trying to find them around this kitchen island. It's a legitimately suspenseful scene and you're not sure if these kids are gonna make it. But of course they do. They get the power back on right in the nick of time and it's happily ever after. They get off the island safe. And the movie closes on this very reflective note. Nobody really talks. They're all just kind of looking at each other. Hammond's reflected on his disaster. He put so much money into this, it'll probably bankrupt him. And he's thinking about how arrogant he was and maybe he'll try again, maybe not. It's kind of up in the air. You got Malcolm who's just happy to be alive and he's like, never again, no more dinosaurs, that's it. But then you've got Grant and Sattler, and Grant is sitting there with the two kids under his arm because he's had kind of a bonding experience with these kids throughout the whole trip and he's developed some fatherly instincts, and she's looking at him all proud and he's finally accepted that, okay, maybe kids aren't so bad. And it makes you think that, okay, maybe they'll have kids and start a family of their own. That's optimistic. I'll talk about that when I get to it. But here at this point in time, it is optimistic, and that's where I'll leave it. So Jurassic Park, what do I think about it? Well, it's still a lot of fun. I love seeing dinosaurs in amusement parks. I think this movie balances the awe and wonderment and the fear and terror and suspense better than all of the other sequels. And I think the use of practical and CGI elements together is a very important thing when considering the longevity of a project. Jurassic Park still looks pretty darn good for being as old as it is and using as much CGI as it did. Now I turn it over to you guys. What do you think about Jurassic Park? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And be sure to share this video around to your friends because that's how the YouTube algorithm works now. And as always, I'm Colby. This is my nerdy talk, and I'll see you in the next video.